Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright people, midweek report time Wednesday evening, you know what we do. Let's have a chat, all things boxing. Look at it's weird, right? Last week, I was really clutching at straws trying to find stuff to talk about in midweek report. This week, it's just like there's something breaking every other day. It's brilliant. And I bet you anything, something will break now after I finish recording and after I premiere this. But I think we'll pick up from sort of where we left off on yesterday's video with AJ and the Sky thing. I kind of already touched on that, but I want to talk first about this statement. This was actually on DAZN Boxing from Shakur Stevenson, following on from his very impressive win this weekend over Oscar Valdez. Now, I spoke several times, even before his fight and after his fight, that 135 is just, it seems to me almost inevitable. That's where he's going to go next. You know, I can't see him sticking around at 130. Not because, he doesn't want to unify, because genuinely, I just think he's just outgrown the weight already. I mean, he's coming from featherweight. He's just going through these weights. So when I look at 135 pounds, I don't see him losing to Kambosos. I definitely don't see him losing to Garcia. I see him beating Haney. Tank Davis, I'd still pick him, but I think Tank's a good fighter. I know he can be a bit annoying. He's a kind of Marmite kind of personality, but as a fighter, I mean, Tank is tremendous. He really is. And then we obviously have Lomachenko. Now, he was quoted here as saying, and I'll quote him here, "I'm down for the Lomachenko fight. I don't duck, no action. I don't care who it is. I'm going to keep the same energy. I'm down for what type of fight. Truth be told, I'm torn between all the belts and a big fight." And obviously, He's referring to at 135 all the belts because the winner of I really, every time I mention Campbell, I just think that goddamn franchise title. The winner of that, been that franchise, may never darken boxing again once they get that fight over with. And the winner, again, I don't see the winner beating Shakur, but Lomachenko on the other hand, I mean, Lomachenko versus Shakur, that's a tremendous fight. I would imagine that Lomachenko, he's probably going to target the winner of Kambosos Haney. I think I'm torn between who I think is going to win that fight, but I imagine he's going to target the winner of that. But if Bob Arum got his checkbook out, if they could make this fight, I think it's a tremendous fight. I would pick Vasily Lomachenko as it is now to beat Shakur Stevenson. I would, because I really did think that after the Lopez fight, that Lomachenko, I thought maybe his best days were behind him. Lomachenko's been a bit injury prone, prior to that. But then he fought Nakatani. Now, Nakatani is a good fighter. Let's not make any mistake, but Nakatani is a good fighter. He's not a world level fighter, but he's definitely fringe world level. And he's a good fighter. I mean, 135 is a very, very stacked division. 135 and 140. So many good fighters, in around the top 10. That when I heard Nakatani, I thought, okay, this guy gave Teofimo Lopez fits. Many people actually felt he beat Teofimo Lopez, not me myself personally, but he was definitely competitive against Teofimo Lopez and made him look at times very one-dimensional in that fight. So I remember thinking, if Lomachenko's regressed, then that's going to be a tough fight. Well, as it happens, it wasn't. It was he looked re-energized. It looked almost like that being a contender again gave Lomachenko the fire, like, not to say he ever lost it, but maybe he kind of is relishing being a contender again, that he's just like, I want to work even harder, I want to get even better. So he looked fantastic in that fight. And likewise against Richard Comey, who, yes, you could say that Teofimo Lopez done a better job. He's took him in 2 rounds, but Lomachenko battered from pillar to post, won a 12-round unanimous decision. So he's been looking very good in his last few fights. If we're talking about the Lomachenko of last year, we'll say, against Shakur, I pick Lomachenko. Having said that, Lomachenko is what? He's got to be about, 34? How old is Lomachenko? I should have this already open before I do it, but I know he's not getting any younger. How old is he? He's 34. He just turned 34 there in February. Okay, now 34 for lightweight. You would imagine he's probably, I know he's not taking much abuse and punishment in his career, but I would imagine that Lomachenko, we're probably looking at about another 2 or 3 years, give or take, of probably peak Lomachenko, or if not close to it. If it happens in the next year, I'm going with Lomachenko. If it happens after that, oh, roll of a dice. But I do think that fight could be a really, really entertaining fight. It really could be a pass of the torch fight in many ways, if you think about it. It really could be. In terms of other news, obviously, I talked about it yesterday. Anthony Joshua poised to re-sign with Sky. I'll actually quote Anthony Joshua here, because he was giving his thoughts on Alexander Usyk and talking about going for the knockout. Now again, I don't... I'll read this here. He said that, I thought I could compete with him as a boxer. I think he won 2 rounds more than I did. That's how he became champion. So the goal now is to go back to basics and go for the knockout. Well, AJ won in the Usyk fight. He won about 2 rounds. I think it was like the 8th round or maybe the 3rd round, or if even. But basically, Usyk outboxed AJ. He outboxed him. AJ couldn't box with Alexander Usyk. Alexander was a superior boxer. Try as hard as AJ did. He did it. He had bits of success in there, but Usyk was in control. To say he won 2 rounds more, that's implying that it was a 115, 113 type of fight. It certainly was not that. It was a more kind of 117, 118 type of fight. Again, realistically, looking back in hindsight, you can give AJ 2 or 3 rounds max. Seriously, I mean, like he's implying that he won 5 rounds. I mean, find me 5 rounds to give to him. I remember one judge gave him the first round. I think that was Howard Foster. Bizarre, because if you go back and watch the first round, it wasn't exactly the most. There wasn't exactly much going on in that first round. But Usyk he established that left hand. He was able to land on AJ with that left hand like that from the first round. And it just, again, like, Usyk was in charge in that fight, and I really think if he had stepped on the gas like he did in the 12th, he could have got AJ out of there sooner. I think going into this rematch, they actually quoted Alexander Usyk going into here. Actually, it's from Block Assets Co. And Usyk actually says on the rematch, of course, what's going on in Ukraine will motivate him in the gym during training sessions during the fight, because for me, it's another way to make people happier who are home right now. And obviously, Alexander Usyk, we know going into this rematch, AJ's been talking about, you know, going for the knockout, really trying to stamp his authority on Usyk. I do think that is probably the best way he can win it, but it has the potential to backfire spectacularly. I mean, like, even if, and it's a risky strategy, but I always thought if Usyk maybe would feign being hurt and try and get AJ to open up, because it would leave AJ more open for counters with the left hand, and obviously AJ doesn't take a shot the best. But also, if you get AJ now, you're going to have to go through an S-storm, but if AJ really opened up and he wasn't able to really put a dent on it, like he really went for broke and just not emptied the tank, but really went for it. We know AJ, when he really steps on the gas and he doesn't have any, like, he doesn't get rid of you, you've got a good 3-4 rounds there where you have a guy in front of you, you know, that's really when you start attacking and you start making the best, because he needs a good 3 or 4 rounds to recover. So AJ Usyk, again, we're waiting on our nails, but it looks like July 23rd. So another fight in the summer to look forward to. Wherever it is, I don't know. We'll wait on that. But I also asked Alexander Usyk on Tyson Fury if he believes Fury's retirement, and he says simply, no, I do not believe it. Nor do I. Now, to be fair, I don't think that. I don't think he's staying retired. I'd be very surprised if we don't see him at some point this year again. I'd be quite surprised, but we'll wait and see. In other news, Artur Beterbiev, we knew this was kind of already signed and sealed, but we have a good to go now. Beterbiev will face Joe Smith Jr. light heavyweight world title in New York on June the 18th. The only issue there was Mauricio Sulaiman, the wonderful human being that he is, had issue with where Beterbiev was from, saying, "Oh, what's going on? We might not sanction it." You know, which is just stupid, absolutely stupid. But thankfully, that's not happening, and Artur Beterbiev versus Joe Smith will happen. And this kind of falls in nicely to the Canelo situation, because obviously Canelo is fighting Dimitri Bivol this weekend, and watching along for that. And that makes, like, obviously, like, say for argument's sake Canelo wins, which I think he will. I was very surprised, you know, and I don't mean this in a bad way, nothing against Dimitri Bivol. I think he's a great fighter, but on the preview I did, I was surprised how many people were actually got. I might even do a tab on the community. I don't usually do them, but I'd be actually interested to see how many people are actually picking Bivol and how close it is in the voting, because a lot of people were going for Bivol to pull off the upset. And don't get me wrong, I certainly do think he can. Certainly, like, I'm not saying that, I'm picking Canelo, but Bivol winning, would it shock me? Hell no. I think that, again, like, I still find it kind of, in a good way, crazy that Canelo would take on Dimitri Bivol. Not to say he's afraid or anything like that, but like, you're gaining a WBA title at light heavyweight, which is good. It, again, like another title. But again, he's not a big name, Dimitri Bivol. Like, I mean, as I said, amongst the casuals I spoke to, like, oh, Canelo's fighting. Who is he fighting? Dimitri Bivol. I never heard of him. He must not be any good. It's like, he is good. He's really he's a tremendous fighter. I've never heard of him. Oh yeah, if Canelo wins, it's like, oh yeah, but like, it really is when you look at the average casual and you hear how they speak about boxing, it can be so, like, I sometimes just nod my head. There's very few times where I would just say, now you're talking BS there. Like, well, I remember one time a guy only last week was saying to me that the guy Tommy Fury fought on the Fury White undercard was really good. I was like, no, he wasn't. He's like, but he's won 10 fights and only lost one. I'm like, that doesn't make you good. I mean, Christopher Lovejoy was 19-0. Did that make him good? They can't understand that, like, the guys these are beating, like the journeymen these are beating, are just garbage. You could take someone, a reasonably novice amateur, and they could probably get to 10-0, beating some of them journeymen. And, a lot of the casuals just can't get that. They're like, but he's 10 fights and 1 loss, so he's really good. And Tommy Fury beat him. It's like, it doesn't work like that, mate. It's not how it doesn't. Just because you're, as I said, Christopher Lovejoy, 19-0, 19 KOs. Who is he going to beat? He's going to beat the buffet, but that's about it. In terms of Canelo, Eddie Hearn on Joe_Co_UK said that Canelo genuinely believes he can beat Alexander Usyk at heavyweight. He says to me, if you can make the fight at 1 pound above cruiserweight, I will beat him. Big talk. I would not remotely pick Canelo over Alexander Usyk. I think Usyk would win that fight, of course. But Canelo, I have no doubt in my mind, honestly, if they set that fight at 201, Canelo would take it. Genuinely, he probably would. He doesn't even weigh that much. But I've no doubt in my mind. I mean, this guy is chasing legacy. Like, this guy wants to go. And I still do think he will fight Makabu if Makabu is still cruiserweight champion come next year. He probably will fight him. He probably will. They'll probably arrange a weight or something like that. But he'll get that. He'll try and get that 5th division. He'll probably try and do that. He will. In other news, because there's so much stuff coming out, John Real Casimiro has now been stripped of his WBA bantamweight world title. So the interim champion, who was Paul Butler, has now been upgraded from interim to full champion. Paul Butler, I mean, credit to him. I know, like, he beat actually Jonas Sultan, who was a bit of a tricky operator. I thought that might be a banana skin for him last week or the week before on that Probellum card. But Butler, when he fought, I can't remember the guy's name now, but the guy who got beat by Inoue in Scotland, I can't remember his name. But when he fought him, he looked terrible. I believe he missed weight. He missed weight by a couple of pounds, actually. That was on the Bellew Hay 2 undercard. And he just looked finished. I remember they were building Butler before he got knocked out by Zolane Tete as, some big, this is the next coming and this, that, and the other. Zolane Tete beat the crap out of him. But he's now a 2-weight world champion. But here's the thing, right? He is all that stands between the winner of Inoue versus the Nair 2 was undisputed. Paul Butler against either of them guys, I don't want to see that, because he is going to get the absolute crap beaten out of him. It's going to be ugly. It is going to be ugly. I tell you that. And I think Inoue will win that fight. So that is not going to be nice. In other news, this one kind of caught me out of left field. I didn't expect this one. Kenshi Agawa, I think I've said that name right, me and names, will face Joe Cordina on June the 4th in Cardiff for the WBA for the IBF super bantamweight world title, or super featherweight, I should say, world title. Sorry. Interesting. Like, that took me kind of by left field. Joe Cordina is 14-0. His most recent fight was a 10-round UD over Mikko Concentrian, I think is how you pronounce that. He fought on Fight Camp, got a nice knockout, but his probably best win is a 12-round UD over Gavin Gwynn. That was for the British Commonwealth title. That was back in 2019. It's a bit of a step up. I mean, Ogawa's only lost one fight, and that was way back. When was that actually? When did he lose that fight? He lost it back in 2012 against Yuki. I'm going to try and pronounce this. Back in Japan anyway. Now, we should have lost to Tevin Farmer. There's a no contest here against Tevin Farmer. Now, he originally, that was on the Lomachenko Rigondeaux undercard, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. It was that was a standalone card. That was on the remember that Orlando Salido versus Miguel Román. I remember that fight actually. That was a good fight. If you've never seen that, that's actually a really good little scrap. I think that was on an Eddie Hearn show. And Golden Boy, yeah. Because Stephen Smith fought Francisco Vargas. He got if you ever seen that, the horrible cut on Stephen Smith's ear, remember that? And I think that was the main event. I think Orlando Salido was the main event. But Tevin Farmer beat Ogawa. He beat him fairly comfortably, but for some reason, bizarrely, it was split decision. It went to Ogawa. But he tested positive for, oh good lord, Androso Standello. Probably saying that name wrong, but that was the PED he got popped for, so they changed that to a no contest. Had a technical draw. It wasn't a bad win when he beat the guy he won the world title off. That was actually on the undercard. Yeah, I remember that. I actually remember watching that fight. I actually watched that fight as it happened. That was on the undercard of Kambosos versus Lopez, because I think that was the co-main. I remember watching that fight actually, because that was just before the main event started. I remember that. So he is tough. He will come to fight. He's 34 years old, but it's a big step up for Cordina. I mean, Cordina is alright, but that's going to be a massive step up for him. And I don't think they've announced any fights on the undercard. Well, he's 30 years old, to be fair, so they kind of do have to get a move on in there. Zelfa Barrett would get his European title shot. That seems to be long overdue at this stage. They've been talking about that European title for a while now. In other news, I seen something about... Where is it? I think it went by it. Yeah, Richard Riakporhe. I thought it was further up the card. But it says Richard Riakporhe will fight again June 11th, Wembley Arena. He's going to be fighting Fabio Churchi. Probably saying that name wrong again. Me and names are just, it's a struggle, man. It's a struggle with some of these names. But I remember that fight was meant to happen back in March. I think he pulled out, injured the opponent. So they're rescheduling that now. I gotta say, Riakporhe, having been managed by Dylan White in the past, was quite inactive after the Bill Smith fight. But he's been fighting regularly with Sky. Also on that card, you're going to have Chris Congo versus Sebastian Formella. Be interesting to see if he can do a better job than Conor Benn. Conor Benn did a very good job on Formella, to be fair. Really showed a lot of news. Really showed quite well actually in that fight. Showed very well in that fight. That was kind of where we really saw kind of everything come together for Ben. He's been doing well since then. Filip Hrgovic pulled out of his fight against Zhilei Zhang. It's believed the reason is he's unable to concentrate on training following the passing of his father. If that is true, RIP to his father. Zhilei Zhang is fighting a guy called Steven something. I can't remember his name. And he's only lost to, I think I was seeing on his box rec, he lost to, Jesus, who did he lose to? Kaufman. Travis Kaufman and someone else. Carlos Negron, amongst others. But they're the names I recognise. In terms of, yeah, here we are. Here's the last bit of news I'm going to read on this. I might talk about other things, but this is the last bit of news. Demetrius Andre versus Zach Parker reportedly now set to be postponed from May 21st. Andrade suffering a shoulder injury. Okay, well, I was looking forward to seeing Andrade. I like watching Demetrius Andrade fight, but I was also going to watch the Craig Richards fight instead. Do a live watch along for that as well. So we get to do that, and now we don't have to worry about going back and seeing who's fighting here. So we are good there. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think we are pretty much good to go on that. So that's pretty much the news in a nutshell. Obviously, we just looked ahead to the weekend of fights. It's actually bizarre. Like, I forgot how many good fights we have coming up this month. You know, I've kind of was after, like, I guess the build up for the last few months has been so good to kind of, well, not good build up to Fury White, but like we've had fights constantly kind of going. And I kind of thought to myself, oh, we're not going to have many fights now in the month of May. Well, we've got Canelo this week. I think we've got Yoka versus Bacoli next week. Yeah, we do, May 14th, so that's next week. So we've Bacoli Yoka next week. And then we have, I can't think of his name. I just said it, Craig Richards versus Buatsi, which is a good fight. I'm not too sure about the end of May. Yeah, I'm not too sure about the end of May. I think with BoxRec is pretty good like that. You can kind of just go to the end of the month. Let's just see, end of May. What do we have? Saturday the 28th. Do we have many cards on Saturday the 28th? Try and keep this video going for a little bit anyway. A few small hall shows. Nothing major. In fact, a few small hall shows actually. Oh yes, of course. I flipping knew we had shows on the 28th of May. Tank Davis versus Rowley. And obviously we're going to do a watch along for that as well, because that's going to be a fun fight. Lara versus O'Sullivan on the undercard. Again, a bit of a kind of a fight you didn't expect to get, but you'll watch it. Be interesting to have a look at that. So that's the month of May in a nutshell. So pretty much, like, I thought this month would be quiet. We've got fights on every week. I mean, we have Yoka next week. We have Buatsi Richards the following week. And then the end of the month we have we have said his name, Tank Davis, getting forgetful. Tank Davis versus Rowley. And then the next week we'll have Joe Cordina in his world title fight. I would imagine kind of June time we'll start getting announcements towards Fight Camp this year. So it's all steam ahead. Boxing is in a... Look, I take boxing for what it is. I'd rather there be fights than no fights. I'd rather be able to say, like, oh, I can watch boxing this week, than not have it at all. You know, I really do take boxing for what it is. It's my favourite sport. I love it. And, you know, we have some decent scraps. Coming up over the next few weeks. There's something to look forward to. For now, I will leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could, lads and lassies, smash the like. Growth's been still going well. We're happy with that. And let's keep it going. Long may it last. Share the video as well if you want. Please do. Help your boy out. For now, I'll leave you with that. I'll talk to you people. Peace.